Okay.
Guck mal, nur noch mal schnell. Yeah. You know, I thought this is a nicer background.
We came together in the Berlin of the West Berlin of the 68 and after years, and meet more or less at the Berlin Art School in different departments. So I was studying architecture and Monika was studying pedagogics, German language and theater for being a teacher. So already at this time we talked about new learning spaces because we were unhappy with the situation in school where people should learn and so on. And this was the basic foundation for our understanding of work together, what we would like to do, because we came from, say, 70s video, looking at large video installations at Documenta 72, for example, very impressed, then large-scale photography, and also installations like from Beuys, which this goes through the whole building, like Honigpumpe am Arbeitsplatz or such things. So, and it was 1987 when we, after buying an Atari to work with a computer, which we very fast discovered that this doesn't make sense because one computer is not able to do what we wanted to do. So, on the looking back in the media art, what we, for example, what was what we know about was like the 60s people like Frida Nake, Manfred Mohr or Nees, which all tried to learn the plotter machine to draw paintings. So that was clear for us. This is not what we should care about. And suddenly we got the virtual reality equipment, iPhone and Data Glove. And on the other hand, Berlin collapsed. West Berlin has collapsed. The wall fell down. So that was the background from the content side. We started to make a project about the Berlin, about the new perspectives, about the new situation, and even without knowing the word interactivity, we made an installation which brought together a spatial installation about Berlin with a city model and in different levels, also in different time levels and historical levels, and we got the chance to install this installation at a big trade fair show, Berlin Funkausstellung, very famous exhibition space at that time for media art was nearly not existing. There were galleries which showed the drawings, for example, but not for installation. And also the idea of installation, which is directed to the viewers, to the people who come to the installation, not just to look, but to do some work, to think about in common with a small group about the future of Berlin in this case. So we showed them, they gathered around an interactive table with an area view map from the 70s, which showed the death strip and the part divided city, and they got a small sensor in the hand and could travel through on this map, looking at three-dimensional images, large images on the wall. So very abstract images about the buildings and the space of Berlin, and what happened, we didn't expect it, but what happened immediately, East and West Berlin people, former enemies, so to say, came together around this table and started to, that was Potsdamer Platz, it's empty now, come complete empty, but when I was 30, we were dancing here, went to this bar, and so they shared memories, and also nearly the same time they gave expectations about the new situation in Berlin, what the city should change. So with coming together, East and West. The first project, Walking in the City, is called Berlin Cyber City, and the other project in the museum was called Home of the Brain. So in that space, so you could change spaces and dimensions and scale, and also change the activity looking at an exhibition or looking in the city and so. And that was the first complex of work. So it started from a large environment to go into spaces, and at that time we were interested in doing research on what is virtual space, what it is good for, what is virtual reality, how do we behave in this artificial environment.
Was die gegenwärtige Informationsrevolution charakterisiert, ist nicht nur ein Umkodieren aus Buchstaben zu Zahlen einerseits und Bildern andererseits, sondern es ist auch eine Umschaltung des Fluxus der Informationen. Früher, wenn Sie Informationen erwerben wollten, mussten Sie sich in den öffentlichen Raum begeben. Und Leute, die etwas zu sagen haben, gingen in den öffentlichen Raum, publizierten dort. Also der öffentliche Raum war der Ort, in dem Leute ausstellten, publizierten und andere hinkamen, um das dort Publizierte nach Hause zu tragen. Die Buben und Mädel, die da vor den Terminalen sitzen und miteinander dank reversiblen Kabeln in Verbindung sind, die wenden der Politik den Rücken und sie wenden sich einander zu. Und das ist eine neue Struktur, die nicht mehr Politik ist, sondern eine Vernetzungsstruktur.
Das ist jetzt aber Rom.
Le nouvel espace est un espace vitesse. Ce n'est plus un espace-temps, un espace où le temps est, je dirais, manipulé. Ce que nous manipulons, ce n'est plus le temps de l'homme, c'est le temps des appareils, c'est ce que j'appelle l'espace-vitesse, ou la drogosphère, c'est-à-dire la sphère de la vitesse. Et là, peut-être pour conclure, pour moi, la vitesse n'est pas un moyen, c'est un milieu.
Was ist denn der Unterschied zwischen dieser Hand und der menschlichen Hand? Warum sollen wir überhaupt einen Unterschied suchen? Weil die menschliche Hand zum Beispiel gehalten werden kann, sagen wir meine Hand von einer schönen Frau. Und dieses Halten, nicht, oder Streicheln hat für den Mensch eine gewisse Bedeutung, nicht? Aber für diese mechanische Hand überhaupt keine.
It's a waste of time to learn things over again when other people's brains have those structures. So the children will acquire knowledge in this much faster way, and then they will make small improvements themselves, and then the next person can get that, get choices.
The beginning of our working together was really when we discussed about learning space. What is a space to learn? How comes that people feel good in a space where they can learn? And this had to do with that I was in a school, was teaching art in school and theater and drama, and Wolfgang was doing architecture, and we had discussions like this. And then something went wrong. I made a computer Fortbildung, a computer whatever. I did a computer training, so I was the only one who was really able to, after this training, to work with CAD programs, to model things, and yeah, I started this, and I met Eduard Banwart, and Eduard Banwart was the one who had the wish to start Art+Com. It was a network of people in different universities, professors in different universities, but they just did some kind of technical tests via broadband if this is working, and nobody knew why should it work or what could be done and what could be shown. And I met him, and we came together and started to work together. He invited me to come there, and because I started there, Wolfgang came. So we were the first three who started working with art and technology, let's say. And then I was interested in knowing about people like Willem Flusser or Paul Virilio or Weizenbaum, such people, or Minsky, who had special standpoints or viewpoints on the development of digital media. And they were so I was more critical, let's say. Yeah, and most of the people in our department, in our institute, were enthusiastic. And I was the critical one who was interested to have discussions about what happens and where will it go to, and how could we be involved, and how could it be possible that more artists have a voice there and not only the computer scientists. Yeah, that was one of the discussion in the beginning. Work with a virtual environment. What does that mean? How can you navigate there? And yeah, how do you have equip it? How do you furniture it? How do you work with the colors so that you get an orientation? It was nothing there. We not only was developed the software to make it work, from a CAD model to an animation model and to map some textures on it. We also added a radiosity software because one of our former students who came to us to work with us had made a diploma work. That's what Hendrik Tramberend, a diploma work about radiosity, and this gives this wonderful light, color, shadow, so that you could, in real time, it was incredible. Nobody had this, and it was really needed to have such a huge Onyx or Silicon Graphics computer to make it work or to enter this virtual space. But it was the only environment who had this atmosphere which was like magic, and people really liked to go in and to go around, find out what is there and what different spaces are made. It was the invention of, when somebody invented film, we invented how do you work with space, with virtual space. And then it was really great that Wolfgang always does very quickly wonderful little models. And he did a real 3D model. Maybe he prepared it to show. And with these 3D models, we worked and tried out things. And then with the CAD program, we tried and made sketches or little models. And then to the next station came it to Uli Weinberg was helping with, because he was the one who could work with the animation software, and then Dirk Lüsebrink came and put it on the Radiosity software. So it was really a wonderful team which came together, but I needed a lot of time. Because I needed a lot of time always to get somebody to make this happen, you know. And it was not something there. It was really everything invented at the moment. And that was fascinating. It was a bit a pity that it really went very fast, that it got the Golden Nika, it was awarded, and we were showing it at Ars Electronica, and we realized what is the special, you know, how do you move there with this data glove. Today you have virtual environments with sticks, with I don't know, with joysticks or with controllers, but you don't have this movement. And this movement, having this your hand, this is like a dancing part of your body. And we realized, you know, everybody was talking about losing your body because of virtual reality. You don't need your body. You fly with bodiless. And I said, no, it's not true. You feel your body much more. And we saw that you had only this hand, a graphical representation of the hand, to see a person moving through this environment. And what you saw is if you knew this person, you could realize, or you could see, oh, this is Pavel, or this is Dirk, or this is Henrik, or you could see that. Even if we did a test between Atlas.com in Berlin and Geneva, the telecom show in Geneva, and I saw the hand and I knew who was moving there. And that was fascinating for me, that it was about dancing. It was about the body and dancing. The glasses came from Sutherland, and what we had then, because Sharon Lanier and Tom Zimmerman, they started a private company from their research places where they came from. I think it was Microsoft, or I can't remember really well.
IBM and Atari.
You see, he knows. Okay, they came from IBM and Atari, and they made this private company and wanted to make a business from selling data glove and data glass. And this was a crazy idea, let's say, because, I mean, the computers were so expensive at that time. The equipment was so expensive at that time. The Silicon Graphics computers, that was something what then started, that the film industry, you know, like Steven Spielberg started with Jurassic Park later, but this started then. It was much earlier, not much earlier, but it was earlier. And they came and realized they have to show something with their data glove and Googles, and then we had this exchange. It was a little let's say a startup, Sharon Lanier's company and our research institute, and we exchanged devices against model software models.
With the project Home of the Brain, we started to realize a virtual exhibition, but not of images or sculptures, but of thoughts, of concepts, because we were reading at that time some of the prominent speakers in the developing media culture, for example, like Paul Virilio, French architect, who spoke about the upspeeding technology, even when the technology was very slow at that time. So it was very early to see what come up with a kind of change in speed and space spatial perception and so. And also it came together with the first Gulf War when the first drones, for example, were sent. So it was about telepresence also. Sitting at home, thousands of kilometers far, the war is navigated like this. That was Paul Virilio. And so we started also to think, what will this media shape for the human body? How will they shape it differently to what we have before? Like photography would change the perception, etc. And then others came together. We took 4 people, following a little bit the idea of a physical game like Monopoly, where you have 4 corners and 4 participants and so, and because we felt in this new space, virtual space, which in the beginning is just blackness, it's empty. You need to fill in geometric models. So we filled in the houses of the philosophers. We asked them, for example, Wilhelm Flusser, are you interested to furnish your virtual house? And he asked back, what should I bring with me to furnish the house? Which is a sort of crazy idea, to furnish a virtual house. And we spoke then also about data furniture, which is like in film, the props and the environment and the real space, which would give the spatial image of this completely artificial space. So geometric models, which are combined with Eigenschaften, with properties, like when you navigate through this home of the brain, coming into the House of Adventure, which was the house of Wilhelm Flusser, the property of this geometric environment was, once at this point somebody comes, the audio file was inserted, was triggered to start, and he says sentence is in this house of Wilhelm Flusser, says one of these theories in 4 sentences, for example. So you, while walking around in a virtual environment,
not walking,
flying around, moving around, you got some trigger points where the philosophers, to set up the philosophers to speak. So, of course, everything was constructed, the geometric houses, the audio files, and placed in the environment. And that was the first difference to film, for example. You need to build the props and the environment and the space, and you need to give this, these are like virtual sensors. So you build in sensors into geometric objects, which make light or change color or trigger the audio, for example. So, and the other thing we discovered, like the movement of images, when you look at this with the goggles on your head, you are in an image. It depends on the turning of your head. So basically your viewpoint is like the camera. You direct the camera. And this goes whether with movements on a plane level, or you go deep and high. For example, you can look at objects from above, like from a small animal. You see a big chair, so it changes completely the scale when walking through this environment. And so that was an important difference to the film or to the movie. You are the camera. You define the image and the follow-up of images. So
my question was, where are we going? And it was really difficult to get an idea of what will happen. We were already a bit overwhelmed because we met really expert people from SIGGRAPH, from computer science field, from research field, from scientific institutes. I mean, from even Sutherland and Tom Zimmerman, Sharon Lanier, they were really involved in this goggle and data glove research and development. And the important point was that today you don't have a data glove, usually. I don't know if there is any data glove in a virtual environment today, but this was the really special entering this space, you know, without your whole body, but as part of your body. This entering the space was so incredible. This was like learning, exploring space, like a baby, doing it with your hand, yeah, and that was very special. What I want to say is that the Googles at that time and these data gloves were much better quality than we have today, because today there is a mass production which everybody can afford, and of course it has to be another quality, but it was so good to have it at that time. It was much better, and nobody got dizzy under the Googles. And for example, at the Ars Electronica press conference, there was one person who could stand with this environment for, I think, more than 30 minutes, and usually you could only have 3 minutes because there was a long line of people waiting to try it, and this person, we all looked at him, and there was this press conference going on, and we all looked at him and were laughing because he was dying, you know, and trying to move into the trees which were in the virtual space, and the sphere which was in the house of Minsky, the house of utopia we called it, and it's a special feeling of space moving inside a virtual sphere. And I didn't believe this before, that this could be such a fascinating thing. And I don't see that today when I see some virtual reality works, because they don't explore the bodily part of it, you know, or what I call the body part of it. Yeah, this was one point, that it was such a good equipment. It was really very good. They were, in no time they were bankrupt, because it was not possible to sell enough. There was not yet a film industry, and I mean, this was in 1990, and I think the virtual reality equipment came up in the 2006 14. Maybe, or 13? 14, not even, quite late.
But we were also critical to the virtual reality equipment, because what it means from the point of the what is called dispositive, like cinema, for example, is a certain dispositive where you look at movies. So it's a building, it's a space, it's a certain arrangement, it's dark, etc., etc. But you are in a group of people, you're looking with other people at some event. So, and we did not like to isolate the viewer. With a virtual reality helmet on head, the viewer is isolated and also captured by cables. So, at that time we started to think about interactivity. What is nonlinear storytelling, which requires interactivity? How does this connect together? We had these nonlinear ideas in the beginning with websites, when there were authors like Michael Joyce, for example, who wrote text which could be navigated by clicking through different websites, constantly changing the narration of the story, etc., etc. And so we were thinking, how could we make something like a movie which you could enter? That was the idea why we were focused on interactive systems. But the first point after the home of the brain was throw away this equipment. This is isolating. We are used to go, for example, we are used to go in a museum looking at images or pictures at the walls amongst other people. We are never there's no situation in the museum like this where just one person could enter and look at the paintings. So you are always in a certain context of social physicality context. So, and we said we changed the direction with the slogan. It is not virtual reality; it should be mixed reality. So the overlapping of digital constructions, digital artificial reality, and physical reality. And directly after the home of the brain, a complete different project came up. It is called Liquid Fuse, and it is about self-reflection. It's like an electronic mirror, water mirror. You look in water, you see your image, and what happens automatically is you touch it. Is it me? You touch it. So, and that was this was a sort of intuitive idea for the question: how can people interact? Do I need to give them explanations or instructions? That was at that point of the development in media art. It was a time when you see some very often press this buttons, press this, do this, and then this happens. So, and we said, no, that's not the way. This we don't understand with a sort of a movie to enter. So it should go intuitively. It should go without instructions, and because otherwise this would be like a Pavlov reflex, and also following instructions is nothing else than you are cabled by these hardware devices from virtual reality. So we were thinking about sort of intuitive navigation and this liquid fuse, which also was then mentioned in the literature as like of the first movements to something which could be called mixed reality, which means the integration of both physical and digital. And so we left the virtual reality sphere going to others, and more the question was more what kind of interaction could be interesting for people, what kind of interactivity should emerge or involve or could from a certain work, and we understood the digital work as a sort of an ensemble of rules, which is like it's in the end it is the algorithm, which is a notation system for the montage of the whole thing. And always it was our idea was we would like to have a fluent montage of what is changing in this interactive imagery. Like with the liquid fuse, it is sort of a physically calculated water, so artificial water waves. You see your image reflected, but it's fluent. And if you touch it, it floats away somehow, so it's like a metamorphosis. That was the sub-team or the major team behind in the background, the philosophical topic metamorphosis, which was at that time in video, like Michael Jackson's, what is it called, was very popular when he changed from human to a sort of very bad person or something like this. Yeah.
No,
this was calculated by days and days rendering of images.
It was what we did was like a real-time morphing, and this Michael Jackson video is morphing from one person to another, from a black to a white to a colored, other different colored person. Yeah. No, but but liquid fuse was interesting in another way, that we realized that here you have the question, what is the interface? You had a monitor where you look in, and it was like water. It was simulated. It was the same as with Home of the Brain. It was such a great machine, computer graphics machine, that people in Germany came and asked, oh, why does this water doesn't come out, flows out? It looked so real. And that was really interesting, how people accepted this work and loved it, and how different this was in all countries we came to. And I think we were in more than 30 countries. And that was so interesting to see how people approached, saw themselves. The idea was that when they touch, they leave a trace. What we wanted them to understand was, you leave a trace in the internet. This is all fixed. It was a kind of critical reflection behind, which people didn't understand at that time. But they really saw this water and this, I can touch it and I change my image and it's floating. But what happened, for example, in Madrid was that in Spain, many people were kissing each other. And we were we thought it's so funny what happens here. And in Los Angeles, for example, they were playing with this really fragile little monitor, which looked like how is that called? A Brunnen?
A well.
A well. And they asked me, they were sitting on the floor and asked me, can you please develop this for my living room, for my children? This is so beautiful. We want this at home instead of television. And yeah, they were very, very playful. In Mexico, for example, they were so, what is this word? Ehrfürchtig. They were so respectful.
Yeah.
So respectful, they were standing and not going on and thought, like a Eve Klein, there was a big projection, this small well, but a big projection behind with this water. And they thought this moving water, which was like moving around, this is the artwork. And they were standing there and loved it. And then the guide said, please come closer and look at this. And they were really like, wow, I can do something. And I see myself. It was really this, when children learn to see themselves the first time, and that's the story which Ovid told in the Metamorphosis. What happens when this Narcissus fall in love with himself, but the idea is really, do you recognize yourself? Do you see, oh, that's me? And this is what we watched all the time, how this was, because, it's so easy today, because we have all these handies, but at that time there was not, of course there was the video art before, but it was so different because you yourself, you could change the work. You were the author of your work in a way. And we did images from this when people saw themselves looking into it. And these images from Spain or from Los Angeles or from Tokyo were always different. And we showed it in the next exhibition. These were the people from Los Angeles. These were the people from Tokyo. And then art historians came who never loved to see what was called media art or new media art. They were not interested at all. But when they saw these images, which were images from people which they never see from themselves, because you get fixed in a position where your face where you look at yourself, but it's floating, and it has a very psychedelic, a bit of psychedelic way of image what you saw, and they saw much more in this kind of images than in when we would have done a real photo of them. Yeah, and then the art historian said, "Aha, this is the artwork." You know, it was not this installation; it was the images we could produce. And we asked, of course, everybody, can we make a can we fix it? Can we make a photo from each moment or from several moments, and then show it in the next exhibition? And everybody agreed. You know, from 94 to 90 or 93 to 2000 something, we asked everybody, and nobody cared about privacy or no. They were all happy, and they thought, "Oh, you will look for good images from us, and we are showed in another exhibition."
This positive of liquid fuse, with the positive I mean the setting of the media. For example, the idea was first to move the water, to move the simulated water by hand, which means a lot of calculation. It is real time, but there was no touch screen. Of course, we were clear you can't do it. Doesn't make sense if you make this with a mouse on a monitor. So you need to move your hand on the water. And at that point, this leads to an invention, because we couldn't buy such touch screens. They were also just like one touch and then another object came. So we needed a sliding movement, and this is why we had to develop hardware, namely a high resolution touchscreen, which you could navigate every pixel in the image. So it makes it possible to hover and to move smoothly over the image. That was an important connection. First was the idea, I would like to move the water. Yeah, but how you do it, with which kind of hardware? And so this is a kind how it needs always tool building. Today you have many tools, but at that time there were nearly no tools, whether hardware or software tools. So that was an important part of the work. And also
and then Wolfgang did this installation part, that he built it, and we were talking with the others, and mainly Christian Bohn, who was then developing getting this pixel from
code.
Each
The code.
that you can, that the
code,
and that you could not he alone, but he combined everything, that you could talk to every pixel, you know, not and that it's really a smooth movement. But Wolfgang did this installation with this foil, that you magnetic foil or something, and the point was really that we didn't think of it. We were in a research institute, but we didn't think of it. It could have been patented. It was the really first computer graphic touchscreen. There was no touchscreen before. There was something where you could do one point for the cashier at the supermarket, you know.
Yeah.
But it was not such thing that you really use this as a graphical
you could
instrument.
compare it with one thing is photography, which takes one image, and the other thing is a camera, which takes a follow-up of images. So that was, and the pattern thing is because this interface, from the point of the interface dispositif, combines the image you see and the camera inbuilt, like with your smartphone, on the same level, which sees you. So in the smartphone you have also the audio, which was not at that point or at the time, but we shouldn't have patented because it was a time when Apple patented the waste paper basket image. So, yeah, okay.
You think we could have done it because the problem was always that neither in Germany nor
we should have.
But neither in Germany nor in Brussels in Europe they allowed to patent because they didn't understand usually. That was the problem. That was different than United States. It was easier to patent something in the United States.
What I wanted to say is which was interesting to learn for us. There's the idea, say, moving the water, and then the realization with a certain kind of hard and software. This is an interdependence of which could be, which is necessary to develop, and also then. An interesting example was also because this liquid fuse exists. We always made some kind of twin projects, working with a touchscreen with liquid fuse and the morphing of the image, and working with a camera which looked out of the image surface, watching you. The rule was for the algorithm. The rule was to follow the widest, most wide track in the image, which is usually the face of white people. So it didn't work in a case when people of color came, and it was interesting to see the camera tracking changed because he had a white skirt, changed from face, which was very relatively
dark.
Compared to the background, it was hell, light color, but the white skirt was, of course, the point the camera went to. And so what came up in the image was not a sort of smooth morphing, but a kind of very expressionistic jumping of the complete image. So, and which says basically the arrangement or the idea is similar. Looking in a camera and then be recorded and
coming closer,
calculated into a certain image background. Yeah, one time with the touchscreen, which is kind of simple technology in a way, and on the other hand, which with the camera tracking your movement in order to get some distance and so, and some reference point for the digital system, and such a different visual output. Very smooth on the one hand, very expressionistic, chittering image on the other hand. So that was an interesting way of experimenting with interface technologies and also finding out the expectations, like I said, it just reacts on white faces but not on black faces. So, which is same thing still today in artificial intelligence, like cameras watching people, and it depends what the programmers wrote in the program. So, for example, as we heard this from crime prevention things, or some which is running today. So.
But the point was that with this colored person, we realized how important it is to think about so many things. And I think this was in '92
when coding.
when coding and when talking with all the computer scientists who were mainly the people where, we had one who did only the algorithm, the physical algorithm for the wave movement, and for liquid fuse there were several people involved with their special algorithm, and Christian Bohn put it all together. And with this rigid waves, which was a distant tracking, also approaching the camera, which was there behind, like in a fashion show where you go on a catwalk. This was like visitors came and saw themselves on a screen, and this screen was changing when they came closer, and it was splittering. Kann man das sagen?
Yeah, that was the image rule. Instead of smooth morphing,
but with this
explode. Also.
Yeah, but with this tests we did, we showed it first time at our castle day at our research center. There we showed always things so first to test with people, and that was very important because then good luck was that this colored person came, and we realized at that time, you have to think about we are not only white people on the world. That's today so much more clear, and but at that time you were really thinking in your little country or maybe in the Western world, where you don't have to care so much. Yeah. It was really good that we very early learned everything happens inside this code. And when we have these discussions about artificial intelligence today, then it's really not about that we can use it and that it's probably helpful for something, but that the coding which is done by 99% white, male, young people. And that's not very diverse, and therefore you have to discuss that all the time. That also in this computer science school, they in the world, not only here in our country or wherever, that really this people are thinking of. That you have a responsibility when you do such coding or when you show such interactive works. And that's why, let me go back to Home of the Brain. When we had these 4 philosophers, I mean, this was a really a long process to find out who should be the 4 different positions, and there were much more. There were really only male positions, which I found easy and understandable enough to make these different standpoints clear, because we had so not many possibilities to show a bit of text or a bit of listen, a bit of words. And this was quite good with Willem Flusser, which was our favorite anyway, and we all were talked with all of them. And Willem Flusser, I think Wolfgang mentioned it already, he wanted immediately work with us, and that was so crazy and so wonderful for us. We wrote a letter, he wrote back and said, let's start. How can I furniture my house of philosophers, my philosopher house? And we said, you get the house of adventure. For us, your concept is like an adventure. Marvin Minsky was like utopia. Paul Virilio was the catastrophe, or
hope.
Nine.
Yeah.
and Joseph Weizenbaum was the House of Hope, because he was really very, very helpful in this whole scene to start a critical discussions, because it was at that time already, I think it was the second time that artificial intelligence was discussed as something which could be so crazy and wonderful for the world. In the 90s, it was the second time. So now today it's a real different point, because now computers can be more, have more power to do this research through the whole internet. But what happens today is that we really have to talk about that first. All what is researched in the internet is from special kind of people and not from somebody in South Sudan or in Mali or I don't know, but not in the well-developed countries. They have not problems, but the others, they are not hurt here. And this is one point. Another point is that with this artificial intelligence, always the whole internet is looked through, and it spends such an energy which is already increasing every day, but with this algorithm which is always researching, and which is the case at the moment everywhere, because not only ChatGPT but also all these image artificial intelligence programs, and everybody is using that, and it's so crazy. We are at a point of climate change and this crisis, and this is increasing every minute, yeah. And that's why it's important to talk about what happens now, yeah. And fortunately, there are also young companies, research companies, who start for looking for was ist nachhaltig? Sustainability and do other kind of programming. Yeah. Whatever. It's several problems come with this maybe helpful tool, but I think it's really important to talk about that very critically. What are you doing with this tool, or what will happen? It's again such a situation what we had with Home of the Brain at that time, that we wanted to see or to discuss with people and to make other people aware of what is the situation. In 1990, nobody was really interested in digitization or thinking about what will happen. But of course, in Berlin, it was because the wall fell down. And that was the point that we said, okay, we cannot work with Home of the Brain and Data Glove and Helmet and Google, because the people want to communicate and to talk to each other. And so we did a next version of Home of the Brain, which was called Murmuring Fields. And this was made for the stage, where you could work. Two performers were playing it, and we showed it at a festival. And the people themselves, they could go to the stage at the end and try out. And there you saw that it was really a development and a push into working with the body and feeling the body. And what does it mean to have digital senses, or how do the senses change when you are in a virtual environment? That was such a great direction, and we worked for all these projects we did, was always in a research environment. We invited observers with this audience. We invited a panel of observers, and they were talking after the show with the people what they observed. And this was, for example, a neuroscientist, an art historian, a dancer. So it was a very diverse group of people always. And we had in our own group a person who was an autistic person, part of autistic, and he was the one who always brought in little workshops where we invited, for example, autistic children to play with such with liquid juice, for example, or with another work. And that was something what we learned very early, that it has therapeutic possibilities to work with these virtual environments, with these interfaces. And this was a direction, for example, the responsive workbench, which was later used in not in architecture as we thought at the beginning, but very much in medicine, to do an operation, a medical operation, to simulate that and to give young young doctors the possibility to train and not immediately start with a real person.
First words we described before, I give the major title like flow procedures, because it most effort was how we get this digital stuff in a more fluent way. Everything was so static, like static imagery and a single imagery and so. And we were interested how to get it in a way lively, and also in a spatial expression. So I set up this area like with the title of flow procedures. What came after, because these floating works really floats away, which means suddenly there was server crash, there were machines not available anymore. So for example, Home of the Brain is dead, it doesn't exist, there is no data, nothing. So the next procedure would be on mapping what we found out, because we said, okay, many artworks, not just ours, are going lost. We need to build some kind of archives where these works can be collected. And in this way, it was like 2000, we're starting with the idea of building an archive, which is a completely different topic compared to three-dimensional virtual spaces, because it's much more structural problem. We came to fields which are called today artificial intelligence. It started with text analysis, because we had a lot of documents suddenly for our archive, and on the one hand we had people who read these papers, art historians, and in our team, in order to classify them, in order to make them researchable in this archive, in this digital archive. And in a parallel to this, we employed a neuronal network which was trained with the results of the art historian's work. So trained the neural network, and then used a method which is called self-organizing maps. So we got a visual result of the archive which looked like a land map, because here also the starting point of how does an archive look like was to say, yeah, why not like a map or a globe or so. We don't like to look and search in endless lists, because this is not the way people orientate and go for finding. They would like to be more like on a flea market and see a lot of offers and then to choose what they really want or what they always wanted to have. So something like this. This is a surface of the archive. It's called semantic map. It shows semantic relations between different topics, between different database entries. So the motive of search changes completely. You don't need to search for a certain name or for a certain title. That means you have to know before the search what you are looking for. So we wanted to get a sort of finding machine, and this is the semantic map. So you have a sort of landscape of the digital objects in this archive, visual landscape, and you can orientate in this landscape again, like what we learned from the virtual reality aspect, and get a spatial feeling, and also get a way of like navigating with your car in unknown areas. So, and this this phase I call the mapping procedure. First we had the flow procedure in order to get the images to movement, say, and then we were asking how can, because in the meantime data grow and grow and grow increasingly, and so the question was how we can map this material and to give it in an order or to bring it in a sort of structure where you can find things again.
In '97 we started with the idea that all our works, or many media artworks, were already lost because the computer changed, the Betriebssystem, the server changed, everything changed all the time. The companies were bankrupt or were new companies, and you couldn't have this same hardware and software anymore. So it was really difficult, and we had the idea with our research ministry who wanted to support it. We had the idea to make this a media art archive, and this was starting with a huge email poll, where we asked worldwide all the media artists we knew, what do you think could such a platform be helpful, or what could it be done? Because there was no archive at this time. And then we started with this study, and with the financing from the ministry for I think 6 or 7 years in the end, we started to do first some topics of media arts in this archive, or in this increasing platform. And we had a lot of partners to cooperate, like with 22 universities. We did research projects, they did research projects. How could we teach, and how could students learn? There were no program at the time. You know, somebody was doing a bit in Karlsruhe, somebody was teaching in Köln at the Kunsthochschule für Medien, but there was not really an exchange. And we wanted that people are really involved, and that we learn about who is teaching what, and how could we learn from this program. So that's why we did a lot of cooperation. We invented this platform Netzspannung.org, not netzspannung.org, and it was increasing, and we learned that nobody knows, because this is an archive and a library, but there is nobody at the entrance who can tell you, here you find this one and here you find this one. Of course we had started everything connected. Here are the telelectures, here are really great telelectures about the digital image, and this was a partnership with Burda Academy in Munich, where, for example, Wim Wenders spoke about the digital image like a filmmaker, and Norman Foster as an architect spoke about the digital image, and Barbara Stafford as an art historian, or Aleida Assmann as an archaeologist. So that was very interesting.
Or Kittler.
And the whole Germany was sitting in the nights when these lectures were on, and we had always in our research institute, we had to increase the bandwidth so that everybody here really could be connected. And that was really a time in the beginning, this was so from 2000 to 2004, where it was exciting that you realized that people learned from each other through this, our mobile unit, all the tools we had developed for this archive and platform. And then we realized that for the platform itself, we need something for this increasing documents and videos and whatever is there. And we did knowledge discovery tools. And that's what Wolfgang mentioned. We started to work with the semantic map, which is based on a kind of artificial intelligence that maps all the texts in this archive, in this growing archive, and maps it according to the relations of the documents, of the videos, and puts it together. And then you had a map of kind of islands where you see blue dots, and these blue dots are the documents, and the islands form together around a topic like virtuality or interface or whatever you look for. And when we introduced this to a bigger audience of media artists, then they were a bit of disappointed, because I said it will always change. When there come new documents, it will change, because it looks, which is my new relation?
The map will change.
The map will change.
Yeah. It's a nightmare. Imagine the geographical map here, city map of Berlin changes every day.
Yeah.
So it's a nightmare. It's also a designer's nightmare, because they like some terms, like notions like constancy of place, for example, on a website. It should not change so much.
But the semantic map needed this change, of course, because it takes in all the new input, and it changes then its outlook. But we were awarded for this for these tools, especially the semantic map, but also the matrix, which we did later, which was visually planned like a matrix, where you could look for videos. Look for videos about
like a
the
video
work,
jukebox.
Like a video jukebox, yes. But it was installed on a point screen, another invention where you could, without touching, choose one of these and go into the deep of this archive, choose one of these documents or videos or works. And there was a third one, and this was the one where the whole archive flows around you. It's like a big projection wall, and you see authors, titles, projects, very structured, so that you have different approaches to this archive. And that was the research we did, which came up by thinking about how do you find yourself what you need or what you want. And therefore all these different tools were set up in different exhibitions, because they are also artworks. You know, there are research, there are tools, but they are artworks. And the flowing around came because we did before another work in Munich in public space about the image of a city of Munich and the image of a place where people meet. It was the literature house in Munich, and the work was called Energy Passages. It was an idea from Flusser, how you walk through energy and passages. But what we did was we took the German newspaper Süddeutsche Zeitung, a very big German newspaper, and it's not a financial newspaper, or it's a really anspruchsvoll. What is anspruchsvoll? High quality newspaper, we thought. And we wanted to see after 4 weeks, when we have a flow of the 500 most important words of the newspaper every day, the actual newspaper selection, that what will be the image of the city in the end. So we did a graphical image from it, but we did also the statistics of this. There were 4,000 visitors. I think you need 4,000 that a statistic will be wie sagt man? Digit. Jedenfalls, there were this newspaper every day, 4 weeks, and people came. It was in front of the literature house. It was like a floating of words, very wonderful, great atmosphere. The words were murmuring. They were spoken when somebody was touching on a screen one of these words which were from the 500 of the day, or talking, asking for the word in a microphone. So there you saw this floating, and you saw how the next neighbors of one of these words were coming, and you saw the context, but you were allowed to think for yourself. What is this? What I chose Faust, and I see something which is connected, but my neighbor, an old lady, she said, "Oh, you have also Faust from Goethe in these floating words. That's great." And that was not the case, but it was good that they came with their own ideas and their own visions. And but we had a visitor building, we had a pavilion where we explained everything about, because it was really a research project and an artwork. And the people after this 4 weeks didn't want it, let it go, because it made such a good atmosphere. But it was always only visible at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. It was November in winter, 5 o'clock in the afternoon until midnight. And they were walking in through this flow. And after these 4 weeks, you learned that the people were interested in so different topics than the newspaper was telling about. That was really interesting, and we were surprised how much the Süddeutsche Zeitung was talking about 1,000,000%, so about financial things. We were really a bit shocked. What is what comes out as the most important words used in this newspaper? And the people used, I think, one very high rated word was victim, love, girl, food, all what you need. It was very subjective. And also an Italian person came and said, if you show this in Rome or in Italy somewhere, please come and show that. Do that with our newspaper, La Repubblica or something, and see what are these people are talking about. But in Italy, you will never have victim at the first place. And that's what I thought. It would be very interesting to have that in different countries. And that was not possible because we worked with the University of Leipzig, with a library, to make all this possible, doing it very fast, searching all these 500 works or selecting it and showing it.
Yeah, that was again based on artificial intelligence. It was this
Mustererkennung
system of recognition of relations of text and calculations. And for example, a commercial application would be like something like a keyword maker. You have a text and there's a program which makes you keywords out of text. So that was the beginning, and also in the background was abstract maker.
From a text.
Now more advanced thing to make me an abstract of this text here. Yeah. So that was the beginning of this kind of software, and we were interested. Basically, what is the first? How to construct this space. We came back in a way to the spatial aspect, because it was an audio-visual space, 50 meter long, 10 meter broad, 5 meter high, floating words over 50 meter on the street, on the square, these 500 keywords. the air was filled with the so-called sound panorama, because as a word floats along, it was also spoken by the system, by the text-to-speech system, and along this 50 meters. So they were all in inviting moments for the audience who just were audience by change, like people walk in the city, come back from work, come back from shopping, etc., passerby, really passerby situation. And this visual and auditive floating just throws you in. So there were people, they used this, like I remember an elderly pair like walking in a light shower because of the projection which comes from above. And they otherwise they didn't care about the words, they just enjoyed the situation. A group of girls came along around the corner and moving through this flow of words, singing and dancing and singing energy, energy, energy. So crazy, really crazy situations, how the people used this environment and the area to play. And then on the other hand, people who get really involved, choosing one word, recognizing the selection, their word selection brought back 5 befriended words, so they started like a little mental journey. What is the connection of these words? That was the first input moment for them. Remember in the beginning I said how you get a person to be interactive, so to go into a situation, yeah, and so what was emerging, things like playing with words, or Wittgenstein, there's a Wittgenstein title, Sprachspiel. And it was like a game with words, a linguistic game, and also it was very well connected to the place, which was a house of literature. People come out from their house looking more, say, for a lecture from an important poet, etc., came out. Oh, again, language, and it was not mentioned, oh, this is the analysis of the daily newspaper, this is just words, we didn't mention this. So we also, so they just were confronted with words, not so much with images, words, and then the interactivity was about to speak about what happens here. So that was an interesting, it was like an open air stage.
Ja.
Was soll ich denn
Das
sagen?
sind schon. Ich hätte mal mit Cyber City, hast du doch angefangen, oder?
Ja, das ist beispielsweise Home of the Brain.
Und das ist quasi das erste Stadium. Ne? Es gab mehrere Stadien, wo wir das entwickelt haben, wo wir auch gemerkt haben,
ist nicht nur ein Umkodieren aus Buchstaben zu Zahlen einerseits und Bildern andererseits, sondern es ist auch eine Umschaltung des Fluxus der Informationen. Früher, wenn Sie Informationen
also hier sieht man nur die Hand.
erwerben wollen, mussten Sie
Und
den öffentlichen Raum begehen,
das ist genau diese Navigation, die ich vorhin beschrieben habe.
die etwas zu sagen haben, gingen in den öffentlichen Raum, publizierten dort. Also der öffentliche Raum war der Ort, in dem Leute ausstellten, publizierten und andere hinkamen, um das dort Publizierte nach Hause zu tragen. Die Buben und Mädel, die da vor den Terminalen sitzen und miteinander dank reversiblen Kabeln in Verbindung sind, die wenden der Politik den Rücken und einander, sie wenden sich einander zu. Und das ist eine neue Struktur, die nicht mehr Politik ist, sondern eine Vernetzungsstruktur.
Das ist natürlich Deutsch, ne? Also it's in German, but he talks about this new network structure that the young people will talk to each other and not listen to the politics anymore. And this is Paul Virilio, who only speaks in French about the vitesse, the speed of time.
Pour moi, la vitesse n'est pas un moyen, c'est un milieu.
Was ist denn der Unterschied zwischen dieser Hand und der menschlichen Hand? Warum sollen wir überhaupt einen
Das
Unterschied?
ist jetzt Weizenbaum,
Weil die menschliche Hand zum Beispiel
der über die
gehalten
Hand
werden
spricht.
kann. Sagen wir, meine Hand von einer schönen Frau. Und dieses Halten, nicht, oder Streicheln hat für den Menschen eine gewisse Bedeutung. Nicht? Aber für diese mechanische Hand überhaupt keine.
So Weizenbaum asks, why is this digital hand important? It's not important. It's the real hand has a meaning for us, but not the digital hand. So that's what he's always talking against it. And this is Minsky who says children should have it.
Children will acquire knowledge in this much faster way, and then they will make small improvements themselves, and then the next person can get that, and get choices.
But you saw that this was always a bit more furnished, more developed, but it was more difficult to walk through or to move through because it was a bit too high, too much. And you have always to look how much mapping or whatever you have inside, how much furniture is possible, how much words, how much photo, and how can you move so that you really can experience it. I think that's much easier today, but it's good to think about what is really needed, what do you want to express, how do you get the idea to the people. And we had not enough time to really test this anymore, because it was not so many times exhibited.
Ja, Oberhausen und Oberdauf. Nach 5 Jahren interessant.
Das geht nicht weg. Das.
This is the floating words of this newspaper, every day the actual pages. And in the literature house inside from the coffee place and outside people came and discussed it and learned. They came the next day with their families, with friends, and they said, oh, we are so happy that we don't see for the 100th time the Kandinsky Blaue Reiter again, but we see something what is going on now, which has to do with our lives and our future. That was really good to hear. And the words were looking like Jenny Holzer words flowing over the place. It was so poetic, you know how it looked. It was really nice. In fact, such a wonderful atmosphere. Also, like the children were playing with this. And Sherry Turkle, Christiane Paul, and others were talking about it and writing about it. And this is also on the website of these energy passages.
Netzspannung.org is an information pool for artists, designers, scientists and scholars. Netzspannung.org presents topics from media art and research such as cultural heritage, on teaching culture with digital media, perform and play, on interactive play and stage concepts, and explore information, create knowledge, on visualizing information. The area Positions shows numerous video documentations of lectures given by renowned artists, scientists and scholars. Selected lecture series are recorded with the aid of a mobile streaming lab and can be transmitted live into the lecture theatres of associated colleges and universities. This networking of lecture theatres expands the possibilities of teaching on the spot and represents a first model of the classroom of the future. The area Learning addresses the question of how teachers and students can be introduced to artistic work with the new media. Here, teachers can find a variety of ideas, suggestions and teaching examples, showing how they can get children and young people to develop, for example, dancing scrap metal robots, a multimedia music performance, or an interactive exhibition. The Digital Sparks competition provides an insight into media studies teaching at German-speaking colleges and universities. All competition entries submitted by students from the years 2001 to 2003 are archived and can be researched via an interactive map. Netzspannung.org's archive contains over 1,000 multimedially prepared database entries, including research projects, artistic work, and interactive installations, as well as mixed reality performances, experimental formats, and interactive visualizations. Media cultural artists can also help build up the archive directly. The community area is Netzspannung.org's open channel, where artists and designers, as well as scientists and scholars, can publish their projects themselves. In this way, their contributions become part of the archive. The archive is accessed via different interfaces. Lists are useful for tracking down particular people or projects, while graphic knowledge discovery tools, such as the semantic map or the timeline, help users to disclose new connections and content intuitively. The semantic map structures, networks, and visualizes the archive's content in terms of semantic relations. It provides users with a navigational system that allows them to rummage through the database, discovering new and hidden connections. The semantic map organizes the archive into semantic clusters. The timeline sorts the content of the archive chronologically, presenting it in dynamic time axes and thereby revealing connections between different content fields. Netzspannung.org is an interface for digital culture and a place for education and learning on the Internet.
Yeah, that was at a time when really nothing was there, and it was really helpful to connect all these this teaching community, at the art schools and also the computer science courses in technical universities. They were also involved, because of the competition we did. And in this video was made in 2004, but it went on to 2008, and I think there are more than 4,000 words, not works, documents, videos in the archive of Netzspannung.org. And this is now at ZKM in Karlsruhe, at the Center for Art and Media in Karlsruhe. And what we try now is to set up everything and try to make it work, because not everything works, It's like always, it's some software is gone. This is Rigid Waves, the twin project of Liquid Fuse, where you see yourself in the water. Here you see yourself by approaching yourself. The sound is horrible here. The closer he comes, the more distorting the image is getting. Wir haben viel zu wenig Video davon. Achso, nee, ich meinte diese Art Sound, das noch.
Ja, sehr gerne.
Alles anfing, mehr oder weniger. Was dann mehr auch zu TerraVision geführt hat. Weil alles, was mit Maps zu tun hat, mit Karten, fing an mit diesem Projekt, was wir hatten am Anfang, neue Medien im Städtebau. It is an interactive table, but you could also see this project Berlin Cyber City with Google's, and when you saw that under the with the helmet and the data glove, you could switch between the city space, the underground space, and what we found in the underground. There was the old Nazi bunkers which were closed for 30 years or something during the DDR time. So you could move around this underground station, Potsdamer Platz, but see into the hidden Nazi bunkers. In '87 we started with Atmoscom. This was not yet an association, this was a bit later, but we started to work, and it started with this new media and urban studies, and this was where Berlin Cyber City came, and